These are the mindsets, not just the behaviors. These are the mindsets of a self-disciplined person. So here we go. Here's what he says. Here's the article, by the way. You believe I still carry this thing? Here we go. Number one, genius is 99% perspiration. Perspiration. I had to hear that. I had to have someone give me permission to work really, really hard. Now, what they do in this article, by the way, is they interviewed other dominators. So they interviewed Martina Navratilova, the great tennis player. They interviewed Joe Montana, the incredible quarterback football player. They interviewed Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player of all time, all talking about Tiger and their similar mindsets. So this isn't just Tigers. This is the dominator mindset. 99% perspiration. It begins, all the dominators agree, with good old-fashioned hard work. There's no magic pill, no such thing as effortless grace. At this level, talent is a given. But Tiger works harder than anyone out there, and that's why he's kicking butt, says tennis great Martina Navratilova, winner of 167 women's titles, including a record 9 Wimbledons. Every great shot you hit, you've already hit a bunch of times in practice. The vast majority of athletes have a much lower tolerance for preparation. It's not the pain, it's simpler than that. Listen to this. It's not the pain, it's simpler than that. Practice can be boring, says Joe Montana, who led the San Francisco 49ers to 4 Super Bowl wins in the 80s. A lot of guys say, yeah, I watched 2 hours of game film last night, and that's enough. But they're not really studying what's going on. They may as well have been watching television. Tiger's habit of pounding golf ball after golf ball long into the twilight, often during tournament play, has already become part of his legend. This was 23 years ago. During his so-called slump earlier this year, Woods claimed to be working on something special for his new swing in the Masters. People rolled their eyes until he won the Masters. Montana, like Woods, understands that such preparation pays off biggest in critical situations, moments when a bout of nerves could disrupt even the most basic play. Dominators can be wondrously creative when they have to be, but they're also geniuses of simplicity. In his famous fourth quarter drive to beat the Super Bowl champion Bengals, Montana threw nothing but short passes. No big strike, no fireworks, and no mistakes. No matter who you are, no matter how good an athlete you are, we're creatures of habit, says Wayne Gretzky, hockey's leading scorer and 4-time Stanley Cup winner. The better your habits are, the better you'll be in pressure situations. I think I said that. I think I said that about 10 minutes ago when I said under pressure, you react reflexively. And so although these great people that you see have these unbelievable geniuses and creativity, what they really are great at the fundamentals, and they grind and they hit more golf balls than everybody else. They throw more passes. They watch more game film. They make more contacts in business. They talk to more people. They see more people. And that number one rule gave me the permission and the habit of I've got to become self-disciplined if I'm going to be a dominator. And these are habits and rituals and routines. Everybody on the PGA Tour could hit golf balls. There's nothing special about that. It's who hit the most, with the most intention, with the most focus. Tiger Woods did. And that's why Tiger Woods became Tiger Woods and everybody else became everybody else. So if you want to become aspirational level 4, these self-discipline mindsets and thoughts, in addition to the structural things I said earlier, are the keys. How good is this? By the way, thousands of times I've read Tiger's rules on domination. Number 2, let the other guy get nervous. Gretzky and Woods have one more critical thing in common, an almost creepy ability to keep their cool. Believe it or not, the bigger the game, the calmer I got, said Gretzky. The dominators let the other guys flinch, the other guys get nervous, and that becomes a weapon on their behalf. I was comfortable because other people were nervous, says Yankee great Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, a title he earned with a startling spring of playoff runs, including the 1977 World Series, in which he homered a record 5 times. Sooner or later, you're going to rush and you're going to make a mistake, and I'm not going to do that. That helps explain why Woods, playing in a gentlemanly sport where the rivals directly can't affect each other's play, has nonetheless become known for rattling his opponents. Being paired with Woods is akin to when the disciples tried to save their boat during a storm, only to be distracted by the sight of Jesus walking on water. You're not only aware of his superior skills, you're also dealing with a whole new set of variables, such as bigger galleries, oohs and ahs, et cetera, et cetera. So, listen, guys, what about you? Your peers in your industry? Anybody getting nervous? Anybody worrying about you? Anybody up staying late at night thinking how they're going to compete against you? Do you get people under pressure to crack and flinch? And Or are they not concerned about you at all? See, in business, not only did I want to have the hardest work ethic, but I wanted people to think, man, I got to be at my A game to beat this dude. I wanted the people around me that were on my team to want to rise up to the standard that I was setting at any given time. I want everybody else to get nervous and flinch, and under pressure, I was cool and calm. You remember this, self-discipline, one of the things that comes with it is a sense of emotional control. You don't get too high and you don't get too low. See, self-disciplined people maintain emotional control. That's what they're saying in number 2 here. And I've learned that skill. I used to get very up and very down. Well, listen, when you're very up, your discipline's crack, right? And when you're very down, it's very difficult to be disciplined. But when you can stay somewhere in the middle, up and down, maybe 20, 25%, it allows you to stay self-disciplined in those moments. Number 3, don't just dominate, intimidate. Yeah, Tiger has repeatedly said that intimidation isn't a part of his game, but that's once he's on the course. He's thinking about nothing but his own shot making. Sure, once he's on the course, but what about when he's getting dressed in the morning? I love this, by the way. It's no coincidence that Tiger often pulls out a blood red sweater on his Sunday charges, just as it wasn't by coincidence that Dale Earnhardt preferred dark sunglasses and drove a black and white stock car that looked like a 200-mile-an-hour pirate ship. Reggie Jackson during the 77 World Series was the last Yankee every day to take batting practice. Just before the Dodgers took the field, he claims he didn't care if they noticed, but you could tell he was watching. Before one game, Reggie crushed about 45 out of 60 balls over the fence. That night, he walked on 4 pitches in at first at bat and then hit 3 home runs. Bob Gibson, the ferocious pitcher from the St. Louis Cardinals, took intimidation a step further. He wouldn't even talk to guys on the other team, especially if they were hitters, says Gibson, who had a baffling 1.12 ERA. So here's what I'm saying here. Here's what this means. You have to have the mindset that you are not going to think like everybody else, that you're going to think differently. And I'm letting you way on the inside here of self-discipline. This is deep, 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 deep into it. But if you keep thinking like everybody else thinks, right, you're not going to be great. And I know this stuff isn't always pretty to hear, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is what winning is. These are the little subtle thoughts that when you're, hey, good to see you, good to see you. But in your mind, you're like, they ain't getting to me. They don't know how to play it at this level. They don't know this game. These are all the things. You start doing all this stuff, plus what I said in the very beginning, eliminating the distractions, scheduling the right things. You got to be kidding me. Moving needle activities next, the big stuff, starting with simple practices that build self-confidence and build momentum. How about number 4? This is huge, guys. Have a sense of the historic. You hear that? Do you have a sense of the historic, that what you're doing is something great? I tell my family since they were little kids, say the Myletts are going to do something awesome. The Myletts are going to do something great. We're going to do something psycho as a family. We're going to do something incredible. In business, I tell my colleagues, we're going to do something so amazing. You guys aren't going to believe when we get there. We're doing something awesome. This is a team of destiny. This is a company of destiny. The Mylett's a family of destiny. You have a sense of the historic. This gives you a context to want to be self-disciplined. Does that make sense? Why be self-disciplined if it's never going to mean anything? That's the problem. One of the reasons we're not self-disciplined, it's never going to mean anything. Who cares? No one's going to notice. It's no big deal. What I do doesn't matter. It does matter. It's just your dadgum life. It's just the story of you. It's just your family name. It's just your reputation. It's just what they're going to talk about when you're gone, is doing something historic. So whether that means you're going to win a World Series or a Masters golf tournament or just be the one in your family and change your family forever, you got to have this sense that you're making history. Because, by the way, you're making some type of history. If you're a faith-based person, you know someday you're going to account for it. There's going to be a history of your life. And even if you're not, you got to believe somewhere along the road there's some record of your existence. So you're making history, so you might as well have a sense of it. And when you have a sense that that history is going to be great instead of average and ordinary, you begin to automatically become compelled to be self-disciplined. If you lack self-discipline, there's nothing compelling you to have it other than wanting it. But if you have a sense of the historic, that's totally different. So he says this: do you have to win the big ones to be a dominator? It's a subject of eternal debate amongst sports fans, but it shouldn't be. Tiger is the proof. He's at the head of a heavenly crew of athletes, not because he's won 5 of his past 6 tournaments, but because he's won 5 of his past 6 major tournaments. Every athlete says he wants to win major championships, But Tiger doesn't just want those moments of glory. Listen to this. He has an innate sense that he can't be a legend without them. In our lives, there's going to be a bunch of every single day meetings, every single day encounters with people, and they seem inconsequential. But when you have self-discipline in these meetings and in these encounters with people, in your relationships, in business, in the gym, whatever it might be, on an everyday basis, every once in a while, there's going to be a big one show up, and you're ready for it when it happens because it's your habit. It's because it's your discipline. But when you aren't day-to-day prepared, here's the truth in life. When you're doing something historic or when it's a big meeting, most times you won't know it until years later. But if you look back at your life right now, the person you're married to is probably a chance meeting, right? Or something you weren't even sure was going to be significant. The business you're in, the company you work for, probably you weren't even planning on working there or even being in that business. See, our dreams often show up in life in packages that we don't picture, that we didn't dream of. And so it's that day-to-day staying ready and being ready until the important meeting comes, the major appointment comes, the major relationship comes. I always say that you're one more meeting, one more decision, one more relationship, whatever it might be, one new emotion, one podcast away from changing your life. But the hook is you will never know when it's actually happening. Okay. You will not know when it's happening until it shows up. So you're not going to know when it's the big one. You'll only know after you've done it. Now, there are times in life you're like, this one really matters. You will not feel the pressure in this one really mattering when you've been great day to day and self-disciplined all the way along the way. You hear great athletes say it's just another game. It's not just another game, but the great ones can perform just like it's another game, just like it's another meeting, just like it's another appointment. Whereas the average ordinary, the ones that fail, feel the pressure because they haven't been disciplined consistently throughout their life or their business or their fitness, and they blow the big one. And it's true in life. The difference between winning and losing is so small, it really is almost too scary to talk about. If I look back at my own life, the very few occasions and meetings that took the massive difference in my life, it is scary to think about had I not shown up and performed in that meeting, or I had not done the right thing on that first date. It's amazing, even in your own life, isn't it? And so that's why day-to-day being ready, day-to-day having self-discipline, day-to-day having these habits and the mindsets to go with them matter because you never know when it's coming. And the fifth one, this is big. This is why a 52-year-old is this fired up today talking to you. You ready? Never, ever be satisfied. Never, ever be satisfied. Most athletes work the hardest when they're trying to reach the top. So do most business people. Once they can get to that $100,000, they worked hard. Once they get to that $1 million, they've worked as hard as they can work. The great ones work even harder after they get to the 100,000, harder after they get to the million, harder after they're famous, harder after they've got a big following, harder after they get that promotion. They work harder in their loving relationships after they've got the one that's the one. But most people work hardest to get them. And once they have them, they don't work as hard to keep them or to grow it. The great ones work even harder after they get what they want, who they want. Wouldn't you love to be in a relationship with somebody who worked so hard to get you, and then once they got you, worked even harder the rest of your life to keep loving you? Wouldn't you love in business someone who had a goal to get to $1 million or $100,000, and when they got there, they worked even harder? But we all know in life that's not true for most people. But the great ones, the dominators, the GOATs, the self-disciplined people, they work even harder when they get there. So most athletes work the hardest when they're trying to reach the top, but Tiger has seemed only more committed to improving his game since leaving the competition in the dust. Woods won his first Masters by the largest margin in history in 1997, but he knew that he wouldn't reach Jack Nicklaus' mark of 6 green jackets without a jolt of his game. So he spent the next 18 months literally retooling his thunderous swing. And it goes on to give you more and more examples about that. Talks about Michael Jordan in here and compares him to Michael Jordan. But I want you to think about that in your own life, those of you listening to it. How hard did you work when you were totally broke? And now that you're not, do you have that same hunger and work ethic? How hard did you work to lose that first 20 pounds to get in pretty good shape? But are you working even harder now to get the ultimate health and vitality in your life? How hard did you work to get your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend in your life? Are you working even harder now to love them more? Because that's what the dominators do. That's what self-discipline is. Hey, it's Ed Mylett. I just wanted to thank you for being here, and I would ask you to please subscribe to the show. If you just click the subscribe button here, I would really appreciate it. It helps the show grow so we can get even more successful guests on the program to help you. At the same time, if you're subscribed, you're going to get access to the programs before anybody else in the world gets access to them. So if you would, click subscribe right here. Thanks so much.
But let's talk first of all about getting laser focused. And I mean this as your friend. I mean this talking to myself too. I always cover things that make me better, things that I struggle with. But I got to tell you, I think there's a different level for you. I mean, I think there's a different level for you to get obsessed, crazy laser focus. I say all the time, our obsessions become our possessions. But we won't possess them if we're not truly obsessed. I bet there's been a person in your life you've been obsessed with. If you're over 20 years old, listen to this, more than likely you've had somebody you were pretty obsessed with, haven't you? That you wanted in your life, you wanted to date, you wanted as a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a significant other. How many times a day did you think about them? How many times a day did they distract you from what you were doing with just the thought of them? In other words, this is what I want you to understand. When you're laser obsessed focused, your obsession distracts you from what you're currently doing, not the other way around. You're not really obsessed with it if you're easily distracted from it. This is so important. You right now can test whether it's your obsession with whether it distracts you constantly. The first thing you think of when you wake up, last thing before you go to bed. When you have a big laugh, it comes up. When you cry, it comes up. When you're watching TV, it comes up. When you're doing your regular job, but it's your side hustle, it comes up. You can't stop thinking about it. It distracts you from the rest of your life. That's what an obsession does. When it's not really your obsession, the rest of your life distracts you from it. And so the it in your life is so important. But there's all these things that distract us today. I'm going to give you a recommendation. Turn your damn TV off. Turn the radio off most of the time. Turn your phone off a lot too. So here's the deal. The TV's competing constantly to distract you with stuff that really doesn't matter. And I'm not saying, by the way, don't be informed, don't know what's going on in the world, because that makes you more interesting, right? You should know what's going on in the world. But let's be real. Does it really matter what's going on with the Kardashians right now? Does it really matter? They live on my street in one of my neighborhoods, right? And they're very nice people, but I got to be honest with you. What happens in their life doesn't dramatically impact mine, but how many people are more obsessed with the Kardashians? And I can say this as good friends. We have many good friends in reality television. They're even listening to this right now, and they would tell you this. Don't be so obsessed with them. Be obsessed with your own reality TV program called Your Own Life. Right? How about the news? All the time they're trying to distract us. Before it was Obama, now it's Trump. Trump's going crazy today. Obama was nuts about this. Healthcare, Iraq, Iran, North Korea, right? Like all these things. And most of these things don't impact our own lives. I'm not saying don't know about them, but it's such a convenient escape from the work. It's such a convenient escape from our obsessions. The left against the right, Republicans against Democrats. Who's going to be the next president? Who's going to get the Democratic nomination? Can they beat Trump, right? Who cares? Who cares right now? You got to win in your own life. It's like, when I say this, people say, well, that's not, a very professional, evolved opinion. I'm just telling you what it takes to win. What it takes to win is not worrying about all that stuff. That should be the background noise. But talking about it, thinking about it, watching TV about it. Who cares what's going on in the real whatevers of anywhere? Who cares what the Kardashians are doing? Who cares who's running for office now? You say, well, wait a minute. Aren't you socially conscious? Here's all I know. I've been alive through many different presidents, Republican and Democrat. None of them changed my life. None of them did. And none of them are going to change your life if we're being real. People ask me all the time, why don't you run for office? Because I think entrepreneurs change the world. I think grassroots movements of good people and communities change the world. I don't think politicians change the world. And I don't mean that negatively. I coach many of them. I've coached several of them. I want there to be good ones. I want them to make good decisions. But I don't obsess about it because it doesn't dramatically impact my own life. In fact, if you think about it, the majority of people obsessed with politics I just mean this nicely, they don't have much going on in their own life. So it's a convenient distraction to be mad at a politician because you're losing. It's a convenient distraction to get caught up in some issue outside of yourself so you don't have to focus on your own life. If you can spend enough time obsessing about what these politicians or reality stars do, no one will look at you. But eventually in your life, you're faced with you. Eventually in your life, it's you. Eventually it's your life. Eventually they won't be on TV. Eventually it'll all be gone. Remember how obsessed you were with President Obama, whether you loved him or hated him? He's gone now. It's a new guy. And in either 2 more years or 6 more years, it'll be a new woman, hopefully, right? So getting obsessed with these things doesn't matter. Men, so many of you obsessed with sports. You're fans of these teams. Did it really change your life when the Patriots won the Super Bowl? Like, if you're a Patriot fan, on Saturday they hadn't yet won. On Sunday night they won. How different was your life? Tom Brady's life was different. Yours wasn't. You Laker fans or basketball fans, does it really matter? Like, if your team wins, does it really matter? I got news for you guys. You don't play for the team. You don't. I know you think you do. I know you wear their jerseys. I think it's one of the funniest things in life, and I don't mean this critically. Please, I mean this as a brother, guys. But you running around wearing a jersey with an other grown man's name on the back of it. Isn't that a little bit ridiculous? I mean, some of you ladies are nodding right now. My husband needs to hear this. Hey, dude, I don't mean this critically, but really, a grown-ass man, you're wearing the name of another man on the back of your jersey every single day. Literally, your name isn't Bryant or James or Trout or Brady, but you wear their name on the back of you? Isn't that a little bit odd? We won Sunday. No, we didn't win. They won. You got to go back to work on Monday. You don't play for that team. And it's time you wake up and start getting focused on your own life. I'm not saying don't watch the game, but being obsessed with it throughout the week. Who's injured? Who's hurt? Are we going to win? We aren't doing anything because you don't play for them. In fact, players trade teams so much. What you really are rooting for is like laundry. You root for the team that has like this jersey that's your color, but the players change all the time. Yet you keep rooting for these teams. What a catastrophic, and I mean this as love, because I'm a sports fan. I love the Red Sox, the Patriots. I'm a New England area sports fan. But I don't really get real caught up in it. I go to enjoy the game once in a while and how great they are as athletes, but what a catastrophic waste of your own life to be worrying about what professional athletes do and pretending to be on their team. You're not on the team. You don't win or lose. They do, right? They do. So wake up and get focused on your own goals. I can hear all the women going, amen, tell him, preach, right? Ladies, in your cases, it might be your sports team. It might be your politics. It might be the television star. It might be some author you love. It might be something like that for men or women. For women, some of you it's sports as well. But the fact of the matter is all of these things are a distraction from our own lives. You don't play for these teams. You're not on these shows and you don't know these people. And whoever wins a Grammy or an Oscar doesn't change your life. You winning in your life is what changes it. So tune out the distractions, will you please? Turn your TV off. Get focused in your own life. Invest those hours on podcasts like this that actually impact your life. Invest it on someone's social media like mine who's actually putting out messages about your life. And by the way, I say this as somebody who has many of these people on my show. Many of these people that you admire are friends of mine, as many of you know. There are things to learn from them. Absolutely. They're at the top of their craft. But I'm not deluded into thinking a top NBA player is any better a person than a top school teacher or a top nurse. I don't think a top politician is a superior human being over a top landscaper or a top banker or a top entrepreneur. I think the people at the top of everything, there's things to learn from. And guess what the people at the top of everything have in common? They're obsessed on their own lives, not other people's. Those athletes you admire didn't get there by worrying about your life, did they? And so tune out the distractions in our lives. Turn the TV off. Get some perspective. Get obsessed. Because we do it because it's an escape, because we don't have to look at ourselves. I'm challenging you to look at yourself. Even in the podcast space, narrow it down to the 3, 4, or 5 of us that make the biggest difference for you. And then when you're done listening to us, go to work and execute, right? You can get overtrained. You can listen to too many different shows. I happen to think you should be listening to mine because I think it's the best content. But pick a few, right? Don't be listening to 40 of them because there's time that you could be executing in your life. If you listen to it in the car, at the gym, listen to as many as you want. But off of those times, pick 3 or 4 and the rest of the time be executing on your dream. So what I'm telling you is CNN, ESPN, Fox News, right? The E channel. I have friends on all those channels. They're out to take you from your dreams. They're part of the enemy of stealing your dreams because they just, not consciously, but they take your time. They divert your focus. Can you get obsessed on one thing? What other things divert our focus? The things in life that don't matter, our own negative thoughts, our own insecurities, our own weaknesses, these distract us. Failure distracts us. Gossiping of other people distracts us. Talking about other people, worrying about haters, getting caught up in things that don't matter in our life. Drugs and alcohol distract us. There's all these things when you start to pile them into life, what's your distraction? Just be honest. Is it living vicariously through your children? Is it living through them and their soccer team and their little league and their grades? Are you distracted by living through your children? Are you distracted by ESPN? Are you distracted by movies, Netflix, video games, gossip, haters, Fox News, CNN, right? Your problems. Are you distracted with things that don't matter in your life? There's all these things competing to get you to not be focused. How about your insecurities? How about your fears? How about your worries or your problems? Are you using all of these? Do you your relationship issues, does it distract you from your big goals? Do you let these things, do you almost willingly do it? Here's what I think. Most of us are willing participants in our own distraction. And we need to be willing participants in our own focus, in our own obsessions, and getting ourselves back on plan. Because remember what I told you, if you're really obsessed, the obsession will distract you from these things. But if you're not obsessed, these things will distract you from that thing. And this requires self-auditing on your part. And so that's the part one that I think steals more dreams than almost anything in life right now, is this obsession with distraction. It's the obsession with other people think about us. It's all of these things competing, except the one thing that matters, the one thing. But the best of the best, listen to me, the one thing dominates their life. The reason some of the athletes I work with have a hard time when they retire, can I be honest with you? Because they were so great at what they did because they were so obsessed on that one thing. When that one thing is gone, they don't know what to do with themselves with all these distractions now. Because the best in everything don't live with distraction, they live with obsession and focus. I'm not saying don't be a complete person, but I'm saying for you to complete your journey towards maxing out, for you to completely max out your life, you must eliminate all of these things that take you by the wayside. And so now the second part of the coin, if we're going to win, right, is the sacrifice. I want you to write this down. I need you to embrace the suffering. You know, there's something powerful that once you just sort of embrace the fact that in order to achieve something big, you've got to get rid of these distractions. And then the other layer of it is you're probably going to have some suffering to get there or some sacrifice to get there. And so once you've embraced and decided that this suffering, this sacrifice you're making is an indicator of progress. It's an indicator of obsession. Suffering and sacrifice and hard work is an indication of progress towards our dreams. The lack of sacrifice, the lack of suffering in our lives, its removal, its non-existence also equates to a non-existence of a great life, a non-existence of a dream happening, a big one anyway. And so embrace the fact that you're going to have to sacrifice and suffer to some extent. Once you've embraced that it's going to happen, it's almost not that bad. It's kind of like those of you that are fit. We already know, and you already know even if you're not, you've sort of accepted that before you go to the gym and get there, you're going to have to suffer. And we go anyway, it becomes a habit. No one goes into a gym thinking, I'm not going to have to sacrifice or suffer. There'll be no discomfort or no pain. But millions of people go anyway, don't they, to the gym? On some level, they're suffering in the gym, whether it's breathing heavy or sweating or aches or pains or stress. You know, everything in the gym is a sacrifice, and to some extent, you're suffering, going through some pain. You know it before you go, don't you? Yet most of us go all the time. Yet in life, outside of that one area, most of us we're worried about suffering. We're afraid of it. When we're suffering and sacrificing, we wonder whether it's worth it. We wonder whether we're supposed to. We wonder whether sacrifice or setbacks or suffering is a sign it's not our real dream, don't we? See, at the gym, you'd never think, oh, I'm going through some pain and discomfort. This must be a sign I shouldn't be at the gym. You'd never think that. It goes with the territory. Everyone knows this. Build a bicep or a tricep or a chest or legs. You have to break it down, suffer and sacrifice for it to grow. So while it's happening, there's no part of you that says, this isn't right. In fact, the indication of the pain and sacrifice and sweat, don't you feel better at the gym? You're like, wow, I really sacrificed today. I really suffered. So in that area, we all know to the extent we suffer and sacrifice is to the extent we grow. And your body is a metaphor for the rest of your life. But the rest of our life, every time we sweat, every time we sacrifice, every time we suffer, we don't do what we do at the gym. We start saying, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. Maybe I'm not cut out. Maybe it's not my destiny. Maybe I just can't do it. It's the most unbelievable, ridiculous conclusion we draw, but it's what everybody does, which is another form of distraction, is doubt. The coins flip on each other all the time, don't they? Another form of distraction is just doubt, and doubt comes from the suffer. It comes from a loss. It comes from fear. It comes from the sacrifice. And so just remember this. You're supposed to suffer and sacrifice. So let me ask you a question. What are you willing to risk in order to make your dream come true? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You're going to take a risk. Maybe it's financial. Maybe it's a risk of time. Maybe it's a risk at your job. Maybe it's a risk of looking bad. Maybe it's a risk of failing, of falling on your face, of going broke, of going through pain, of going through anxiety. Maybe it's even a risk in a relationship that's just going to be difficult while you do this. What are you willing to risk in order to win? And you have to accept that, because remember what I'm going to tell you. The price you will pay for not making your dream come true is far greater than the one that you will pay to make it come true. Want me to say it again? The price you will pay, the suffering you will go through to make your dream come true is incredibly small, infinitely smaller than the price you will pay if you never do. You'll pay that one the rest of your life. And so ask yourself what you're willing to risk. What's the price you're willing to pay? Because what most people do when they're trying to chase their dream or their big outcome, the whole time they're negotiating the price in their head. They're negotiating it. Should I continue to do it? Is it worth it? I don't know if I can continue anymore. It's getting higher, and that price is failure. That price is setback. That price is looking back. That price can be financial, literally a physical price. And what happens is, if you don't negotiate that price in advance, it's going to steal your focus and energy and become another distraction. One of the great distractions of chasing our dreams is this thing that goes off in our head as we're negotiating the price we're paying. Should I keep paying it? Is it getting too high? Is it too much? And you'll have people in your ear, it's too big a sacrifice. You're going through too much. And you begin to negotiate it in your mind. It distracts all your focus. You can't be executing and negotiating simultaneously. If you're in your head negotiating and negotiating and negotiating, you can't execute. So negotiate it now. Negotiate it with me now. What are you willing to pay? For me, when I'm after something big, as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, I'll sacrifice everything else. But I will not sacrifice anything legal, anything unethical, or anything immoral. But beyond that, I'm going to get it. And I know that negotiation comes up front. I accept the suffering. I accept the sacrifice. I know the sacrifice is far smaller than the one I'll pay if I don't do it. And I eliminate distractions, and I go freaking get what I want in my life, just like you can. And this needs to be your recipe as well. If you're one of these people who's still negotiating whether it's worth it, and maybe you've got someone in your head making you question it, that is a poverty and scarcity mentality. Let me prove it to you. When I didn't have money, and I spent most of my life with none, just like you, what do we do when we go into a store? We don't go get what we want. We go get what we think we can afford. And so I spent the majority of my life flipping price tags over. I didn't buy that shirt I wanted. I bought the one that I could afford. I bought things based on price, not worth. And so I'm sure you do. I didn't buy the car I wanted. I bought the car I could afford. So when I was broke and I had scarcity, what do you do when you're in that position? You negotiate price. You flip price tags. What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? Not what do you want.
When I was poor, everywhere I went, flip the price tag. What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? I was constantly negotiating the price for everything in my life. You do that when you come from a place of scarcity, of being poor. Successful people and wealthy people have a subtle distinction. They don't look at price, they look at worth. Is this worth it? If you're constantly looking at the price tag, you'll eventually relent. You'll eventually give in. Stop negotiating the price. It's a freeing experience to totally commit. When you totally commit to a relationship, to a business, to your fitness, to your faith, it's a freeing, powerful, it's almost like removing kryptonite from your life when you totally commit. Can you do that? The people around you always say, it's costing too much. It's costing too much. And you're going, maybe it's costing too much. You gotta start going, no, it's worth it. It's not the price, it's the worth. It's a subtle distinction in your life.
That same scarcity mentality we do in going after our dreams. We want to acquire our dream. You can't be in price tag mode. What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? You never get what you want. Decide in advance what it's going to cost, and then decide. Here's the subtle distinction. Successful people don't negotiate the cost of something. They negotiate whether it's worth it. That's subtle. It's very subtle. If you're a person who's always thinking about what it's costing you in the sacrifice towards your dream, you're always going to be negotiating it. But if you can decide in advance that the cost is worth it, the negotiation stops and you go execute. What I'm telling you is if you really want something bad enough, it's worth it. It's worth it. So start to feed yourself the worth question over and over and over again, not the cost question. Cost is a distraction. Worth is a focus mechanism. This is so worth it. It's so worth it. It's so worth it. Focuses you. Cost distracts you. What I want to remind you of is on the other side of that suffering, on the other side of that sacrifice, on the other side of that laser focus is your dream. It's one of the greatest places you'll ever be in your life. And here's what I know, by the way. The times where you've been the most laser focused in your life, listen to me on this, you've been the most happy. The times you've been the most distracted, you've been the most unhappy. Ladies, if you're listening to this, you think about the times where maybe when you were pregnant, for example, if you've been pregnant before, and the amount of focus that went in on that beautiful baby you were going to have, the preparation for it. I mean, you're carrying that child right next to you. You can't get more focused on something than something you're carrying, right? And I'll guarantee you during labor, you weren't thinking about your you were thinking about your electric bill or some email you had to return. You were damn focused in that moment. And I'll bet that baby made you almost happier than you ever been in your life. For some of you, that when you were cramming for finals in your life, right? That first time you were cramming and it was so laser focused on something and you were happy. You know, the truth is that was a happy time in your life. For some of you that have built some businesses or maybe when you were in your courtship dating who you're now married to, you were so focused, weren't you, during that time with that person? I mean, they were some of the happiest times of your life. The most focused times in our life, the less distracted times in our life, also equals the happiest times in our life. So if you really want true bliss, you want true fulfillment, it comes from eliminating the distractions and becoming obsessed. There are healthy obsessions in life. And the more obsessed we are about healthy things, the happier we are. Whether we're obsessed with the happy times of carrying that baby and having that baby, the happy times of achieving a degree we've had in life, the obsession we've had when we were dating somebody and we were so in love with them. These times when we're in the healthiest of our obsessions is when we're the happiest. So I want to challenge you today to make that shift of eliminating these distractions and elevating your level of focus in your life. And remember this, there's three things that I want you to be controlling: your state, your story, and your strategy. State, story, strategy. What's your state? Are you in a state of focus? Are you pumped up? Are you breathing deeply? Are you lasered in on something? Are you completely in there? Or is your state a distracted, diverted state? Right? Hunched over, watching TV, looking at your phone, worrying about Iraq, worrying about North Korea, worrying about Trump, worrying about Obama, worrying about an election, worrying about who's in a fight on a reality show, right? All of that stuff distracts us. Or are you in a state totally pumped up, totally focused on your dreams, lasered in? Number two, what's the story you're telling yourself? Are you telling yourself the sacrifice is worth it, the suffering is worth it, that the price you're going to pay is worth it, and that you're going to get on the other side and great things are going to happen and your obsessions become your possessions, and this is the happiest you've ever been before, and your life matters, and you're not some fan of some team, you're a fan of your own life. That when we win, we really win. When you win the game of your own life, you really win. Not when the Patriots or Lakers win, but when I win, and you're telling yourself that story. Or are you telling yourself the other story? Hey man, I hope we get our quarterback on Sunday. I hope LeBron can drop 25, you know. And you tell this distracted story that's completely meaningless in your own life about some sports team, right? Which story are you telling yourself? The one of your own life or hiding in the story of other people's lives? Let me say that to you again. Are you telling the story of your own life, or are you hiding in the story of other people's lives? We hide in the story of other people's lives through gossip of people that are around us, talking bad about them. We hide in reality TV, we hide in the news, we hide in politicians, and we hide pretending we play for these sports teams. Those are all stories about other people's lives. Are you in the story of your own life? And then lastly, what's your strategy? You got to execute on your strategy. You have a very detailed plan to make that story you're telling a reality, and everything transforms in your life.
Today, I can't wait to share with you what I call the 3 steps of mastery. See, there's 3 stages that you have to go through in order to master something in life. And oftentimes we quit in the first stage because we don't realize it's just a natural progression to getting good at something. And so in any pursuit you have, if you want to start a new business, a new career, you want to learn to swim. Like right now, I'm picked up the hobby of riding horses. And that's a unique thing to do at 50 years old. And so I'm addicted to it, so it's kind of a new pursuit of mine. So whether you started a new business or you're in the middle of a business you've got, or you got people in your business who are newer, or you're trying something new, it's very easy to beat ourselves up or really not understand that there are 3 stages of mastery. And it's just mandatory. You're going to go through them. You can't cheat the system. And so in the 3 stages of mastery, let me tell you what they are.
And then I'll break them down for you. There's the awkward stage at anything you begin to do, the awkward stage. And if you do enough repetitions, you can move to what I call the mechanical stage. And then from the mechanical stage, eventually you move to what I call the natural stage. Everybody looks at you and goes, ah, man, you're incredible. You're a natural. Like whatever you do for a living right now, if you've been doing it for a long time, the first day on your job, I guarantee you were awkward. I guarantee you everything about it was awkward. Where to go, the people's names, what to call things, all of it was completely awkward, wasn't it? You probably even, a lot of people, their first night at their job, they'll have a nightmare that night. I remember my first job I was a busboy at the Whole Enchilada restaurant, and I didn't know, my bang job at the Whole Enchilada was really simple. I cleaned up your table and I brought you your chips and salsa. That's really the whole job. And for some reason at 17 years old, it freaked me out, because I had to walk up to people's tables and say hello, and I'm a super introvert. And I remember going home that first night, I go, I can't do this. It's just too much. It's too much for me. Chips and salsa, cleaning up their table. It just overwhelmed me, which is pretty hilarious. And I had a nightmare that night, like a nightmare of the job. Like everyone wanted new chips. We need more salsa. We need more chips. And you gotta clean up our table. You live. And I have this horrible nightmare of this very pretty simple job that I had. And so what I was in the awkward stage of that job. And if you'd have come back about 6 weeks later, I'd bust a bunch of tables. Now I know where the salsa is. I know where to go in the back and get the chips. I know where they warmed them. I kind of got my little, how are you guys this evening? I'm Eddie. You know, I got my little rap down. It was mechanical. I knew the mechanics of it, but still I was slower than most. I couldn't carry the drinks and the chips on the plate the right way. But you know what I mean? Like, it was mechanical. I knew the mechanics. I knew where to clock in. But he came back a year later, man. I was natural. I'm flipping chips. I'm spinning them on my head. The difference, you know what I mean? Like the salsa. Hey, good morning. Good to see you. Good evening. Hey, Mr. Jones, welcome back. I'd seen I was natural. So you walked in there, it's like, this guy's a natural busboy. Well, the truth is that's true in everything. Right now, I started to learn to ride horses, right? First day out there, you don't think about these things. I'm like, what type of horse is it? I didn't even know the breed. I didn't even know the word. What do you call a female horse? What's a bridle? What's a halter? How do you put a saddle on them? What side do you get on the horse, the left or the right? How do you get off? The reins, are you riding Western or English? I'm like, I have no idea. I guess Western. I was totally awkward. And people that are horse people, they're just like, it's all natural to them, right? They get on the horse, they ride, they saddle it up. How do you back it up? How do you stop it? Like, it's crazy, right? But now I've been doing it for like, I don't know, 6 months. I've ridden quite a bit, and now I'm kind of mechanical. I know how to put the bridle on, walk it with the halter. I know how to put the bridle on the horse. I know how to put the saddle on. I know where to get on. I know how to ride. And I'm pretty good. But if you watch me and you were really experienced in riding horses, you go, he kind of gets it. He's mechanical. The mechanical stage is like this. You ever go to like a wedding or you're at a club or something, and the person's got the dance moves down, but they kind of dance to the lyrics and not the beat? You know what I mean? Like, you're like, the guy's got the moves, but it's just, there's something, he's got the mechanics, but I think he's dancing to the words and not the beat. You know what I mean? That's the mechanical stage. But eventually you see somebody, they're like, oh, they got the rhythm and the beat. That's the natural stage. So the question is, how do you move from awkward to mechanical? You ready? Repetitions and awareness. Repetitions and awareness. So no matter what you do, you got to do more and more reps at it, more and more experience. And as you're getting that experience, being aware of the things that worked and didn't, getting coaching, getting feedback, course correcting, and improving. Success is not complicated. So no matter what it is you're doing, if you're an athlete and you're listening and you've had to switch positions, you were on the offensive side, now you're on the defensive side. It's not that playing defense isn't for you. It's that you better do a lot of reps. You better have a lot of awareness. You better watch a lot of film. You better do a course correction. So you do it through repetitions, awkward, enough reps, and awareness and course corrections, you'll move to mechanical. And then from the mechanical phase, it's the same process. More and more and more repetitions, more and more course correction and awareness until you become natural. And in business, all the money's made at the natural phase. Oftentimes in business, the money is predicated upon your ability to get natural and your ability to train other people at their jobs or crafts to become natural as well. What's most incredible to me, if I can be candid with you, is there's an art and a science to being successful at anything. And most people love the art, the mindset, the thinking, the thought processes. They love the art form of it. What do I need to think? What do I need to vision? What do I need to dream? Subconscious mind, meditation, blah, blah, blah. Most people don't have a tolerance for the science part. The science part's real simple. It's math. You got to do more reps. If you're in business, you got to do more calls, more emails, more appointments, more meetings, more setbacks. You got to do the reps to move out of that awkward stage. The awareness, the course correction, now you're mechanical. You want to get from mechanical, if you're in business, you want to get great at business, you want to become the best ever, more reps, more course correction, more awareness, you become natural. You pick up golf. You want to play a great golf game? You better get out on the driving range and hit a bunch of balls, and you better have someone videoing you, and you better get course correction and have awareness. And if you do enough reps, hit enough balls with enough correction, with enough awareness, you'll become mechanical. When you start playing golf, it's real simple. How do you hold the club? You baseball grip, overlap grip. What's the grip, right? How long should your clubs be? Where's your backswing? What's a swing plane? How do you come through the ball? What's your right hand do? Your left hand, your low? There's a lot to it. You watch someone start to play golf. It's crazy to watch, isn't it? But if they do enough reps, they do enough learning, they learn, they get enough coaching and correction, they can become mechanical. Then you watch people play mechanical golf. They got a good golf swing, but then eventually they become natural and they play their game. If you're going to play the game, you have to have a tolerance for the repetitions. So one of the reasons that we don't do the reps is we stop is because we don't give ourselves credit for what I call invisible progress. Invisible progress means this. There's such a thing as what I call compound pounding. Compound pounding means basically this, that as you're hitting an object over and over again and you compound the hitting of that object, over time you break it down, right? But most of that progress is invisible. We don't see it. So as we're in the awkward stage and we're doing the reps, we're making progress, but it's usually not visible to us. Or if we're in the mechanical stage, we're doing the reps, the compound pounding of doing it over and over again is happening, but we can't see the progress. So what most people do is they quit before they get natural at anything because there doesn't appear to be physical, visible progress. Most of us want to see progress to believe it's happening. But the truth is in life, in most things, even in a loving relationship, a lot of the progress is happening invisibly. Certainly true in business. So let me give you the best example of it. I wrote about this in my first book, but a long time ago, I got invited to a birthday party for a young person, and I didn't really want to go to it because they were so young and my kids were grown. But I went to the birthday party because it was a friend of mine, and they had a piñata for the birthday boy. And so if you all know what a piñata is, it's very interesting, but like basically kids hitting a piñata with a bat, right? And it reminded me of business so much because you get there, what do? They blindfold this poor little kid and then spin him around and hand him a bat, like a weapon, right? So the kid spun around. He has no idea where he's going. He's just kind of flailing away. Can't even find the piñata. That's how most people that start out in business feel, by the way. They're just flailing away. They don't even know where the target is. They're just swinging, right? Just like this little guy. And I'm watching them going, there's an analogy here for sure. So finally, there's a course correction and an awareness. And the dad points the little guy at the piñata, even though the blindfold's still on. So he still can't see it, but now he's at least pointed in the right direction. That's what that awkward phase is like. And now he's wailing on the piñata, hitting it and hitting it and hitting it. And he's getting more and more tired. This piñata is not breaking. Right? So finally he goes, I quit. Why? There was no visible progress. So then what they do, they take the blindfold off him. He goes and plays on the swing set. They grab the next little kid. It was a little girl. Same thing. They blindfold her. She's like a new person in business. She's flailing away, not even hitting the piñata. She doesn't even know where the target is, right? Finally, she gets course correction, makes an adjustment, some awareness, and she's wailing on this piñata. No candy comes out. There's no progress. So she quits. You could picture it. You've seen this before. Next little guy gets up. He hits it 5, 6, 10 times. He quits. Next person gets up. She quits. After about 7 kids have hit in this piñata, the only person left is the little 4-year-old little boy. And everyone's quit because there was no progress. But what was happening was all the reps were happening, even though there was no visible progress. So all the reps were happening. So this little 4-year-old gets up. They put the blindfold on him, spin him around, and he takes one swing. Bam! Hits the piñata. All the candy comes out. And all the kids come running from the swing set back, and everyone's celebrating and getting all the candy. Let me ask you a question. Who broke the piñata? Was it the final blow by the 4-year-old, the one shot? Or was it the cumulative blows that everybody took hitting the piñata along the way that ended up eventually breaking it down? And we all know the answer. It was the cumulative blows to that piñata, the cumulative repetitions that were breaking it down over and over, even though you couldn't visibly see the progress. And see, in life, most people will quit in their pursuit of their dream before the candy comes out because they don't see visible progress. Even though the whole time compound pounding is happening as you're moving from the awkward stage, you're doing the reps, you're course correcting, you're aware. Now you're in the mechanical stage and you're course correcting and you're aware and you keep hitting the piñata and doing the reps of your life, of your dream. And then the natural stage. Most people will quit on their dream before the candy comes out, even though progress is being made. Most people quit one blow away from getting all the candy in life. My recommendation to you is life is a lot like that piñata. You're making more progress than you think you are. Keep hitting the piñata of your life and know that as you do this, you're moving from stage to stage to stage. And then if you do it long enough, the metaphorical candy of whatever that candy is for you, the money, the success, the award, the recognition, the acknowledgement, the emotion, the relationship, the candy eventually comes out. The question is, will you keep hitting the piñata of your life, doing the reps until the candy's there, and will you be there to collect the candy and celebrate? From now on, whatever you're doing, go, this is okay. It's where I'm supposed to be. I've only done 10 of these. Of course, I'm still awkward. Or I've only done 45 of these. Hey, Ed, how many does it take? It's different for different people. The question is, do you have the determination, the relentlessness, the resiliency to stay long enough to move through all three stages until you get paid? So the question just becomes this: are you determined enough to do the reps? Are you determined enough to do the course correction and have the awareness to move through the different stages? And my wish for you is that you become natural as soon as possible. The sooner you do the reps, the sooner you do the course corrections, the sooner you have the self-awareness, the sooner you become natural. And we're off to the races and having blissful success in our life. Yeah, you talk about being kind and compassionate in the book, and we'll touch on that a little bit in a minute. I loved the book. I read it in a day and a half, and both books, by the way. And there's a part of the book that really resonated with me on focus, and you kind of break focus down. I'll just let you cover it a little bit, but you talk about focus having really three components. Can we talk about that a little bit, the focus element?
Absolutely. Well. Yep. The most important part about focus, and I know, I've listened to every single one of your shows, and one of the common themes with most of your guests is everyone understands the importance of being in the present moment.
Yeah.
And understanding that, if we're dragging stuff from the past or we're getting anxious about the future, then we're tending to lose focus in the present moment. And that's the first thing that's going to heighten stress. Yeah. Of all the different definitions I've heard from stress, the one that resonates most with me is from Eckhart Tolle, modern day philosopher, who basically says stress is the desire for things to be different than they are in this present moment. So the very first step to lowering stress is mere acceptance, is saying that what's going on around me right now is outside of my control, and I might not like it, and it might not be my preference, but this is what is going on right now. And our stress doesn't come from events and circumstances. Our stress comes from our response or our resistance to those events and circumstances. And when I heard that, it was like a light bulb went off. And I find that incredibly empowering and liberating, because that means we are no longer victims or puppets to the events and circumstances happening in the world. We get to choose our response.
That's right, man.
And that to me, that means we always have the keys to the car.
Yeah. I often say, I agree with you, by the way. I often say that it's not the events of our life that define it, it's the meaning we attach to the event. And often that meaning comes from the question we ask ourselves about it. What does this mean? So I feel like, you take a guy like Kobe or Durant, Steph, you, an executive who's performing at a high level, an entrepreneur, when there's, in Kobe's case, there's 6 seconds left and Jackson draws up a play that's going to come to Kobe. That event that's about to happen, he attaches a meaning that I have an opportunity to rise. I have an opportunity to win this game, where someone else might attach a meaning to it of, what if I miss this shot, right? It's the meaning we attach to the event. You pointed at me when I said that, so I want to make sure you get a chance to comment on it.
Oh, you nailed it perfectly. So much insight right there. It's the difference between being nervous about taking that shot and being excited because it is an opportunity to showcase all of the mornings you were in the gym at 4 a.m. making hundreds of thousands of shots every off season. He revels in those types of moments. And, I know you've said so many times on your previous episodes, that life is happening for you. It's not happening to you. And that's really what this is talking about. It's saying that, yeah, things are going to happen in the world that we don't necessarily like, and they're not our preference, but they're not, the universe isn't conspiring against you or me. No one's trying to put these roadblocks in your way intentionally to slow you down. These things are just happening. And how you choose to look at those things ultimately determines your stress level.
I want to look at this focus thing again. You said focus is about changing your perspective to the immediate. And then you say you, the here, the now. Is that what you mean when you say presence? And can you elaborate on what that? How does that apply? How do I apply that in a situation?
For sure. You know, the short definition of living in the present moment, I've heard from Nick Saban and I've heard from Oprah Winfrey, so it has to be true. If those two people are saying it has to be true.
They're saying the same thing. I want to know what they're saying.
And that's basically to be where your feet are. Okay. Wherever you are in the physical, make sure that's where you are in the mental and the emotional and the spiritual as well. And that's how I define being present. And, you know, I also want to say that being present is arguably the biggest challenge I face with myself every single day. It's not easy. It's so easy to get, you know, distracted from the past or anxious about the future. So what I like to say is we need to shrink our window. We need to, like, even right now, you and I are making eye contact while we're recording this, and I can see a little bit of a frame in my peripheral. That's all that I can see in my vision right now. I cannot see what's outside of this studio. I can't see what's going on in the rest of LA. I have shrunk my vision to the point where you are my focal point because you, deservedly so, have my full undivided attention right now. And we need to be able to shrink that window in other areas of life. So think about 6 seconds left in the game. Phil Jackson draws up a play for Kobe Bryant. He needs to shrink that window. The only thing he needs to be worried about is executing that play to the best of his ability in order to score. He can't be worried about what's going on in the stands, what's going on with the opponents, what the referees may do. He can't be worried about what else is happening outside of the Staples Center. He has to shrink that window so that he can have razor sharp focus in that moment. And when we can learn to do that basically on cue, then we improve our ability to focus and stress decreases accordingly.
Bro, brilliant. Freaking brilliant.
Thank you.
I've had a very busy day today, and I was sharing that with you beforehand. And I asked Sarah before you came in, I said, can you give me 5 minutes? I need to go change my shirt. And the producers want me to wear different clothes. But I actually set that up specifically today. I'm going to change my shirt after this interview before the next one. And the reason is exactly what you just said. I went in there and said, shrink your focus. I want to distill it down. Not what I have after this, not what I had before it, not what I have to do tomorrow, not what's going on in the other room over there. Shrink your focus, and it allows you to be hyper present. And also for me, when that happens, I feel like things slow down rather than speed up. Is there a mechanism in that with high performers where under duress, things begin to slow down for them as they shrink their focus? Whereas someone who performs maybe at a not great level, things speed up somehow for them.
Yeah, and the speed up comes from distractions. It's being worried about everything else that's going on. And that's, you know, in basketball vernacular, my goal when I was working with players was to get them to play present, which is play in the present moment. And there's 3 components to being in the present. First is just focus on the next play. Don't worry about the play that just happened. Okay. Ed, you just missed a layup. Don't worry about it. Next play. Ed, you just turned the ball over. It's okay. Next play. Ed, I know the referee missed a call. It's over. Next play. See, if you're worried and you're wasting your emotional currency into the plays that just happened, then you're not able to put them into the current moment, which in basketball playing at that type of pace means that if you're still pouting and dejected about the turnover, your man probably just scored 2 points now on the other end. So you just turned a 2-point mistake into a 4-point mistake. We all know we're going to make mistakes, but we cannot be in the business of compounding them. We have to stop them after the first one. The second component is just to focus on what you have control over. Control the controllables, which I believe, if you break everything else down, is just our own attitude and effort. So just focus on the effort you're giving and the attitude that you're having to everything going on, in this case, during a basketball game. And then the last part of that is to focus on the process. Don't worry about the outcomes. Focus on the process. If it's the first quarter of the game, you can't be worried whether or not you're going to win or lose the game. All you need to worry about is winning or losing this possession. If we're on offense, can we get the best shot that we, the 5 of us, are capable of getting, the highest percentage shot? Or if we're on defense, can we collectively do everything we can to make you take the lowest percentage shot possible? And of course, the beautiful part is if you do that consistently enough, as legendary coach Bill Walsh said of the 49ers, the scoreboard takes care of itself.
So good,
and that's ultimately what the process is all about.
You need to be careful you're driving your car right now because your accelerator's going down a little bit. You're like at 83 miles an hour. Check it. I know this because I'm leaning in with you right now. I'm feeling myself like, let's go, right?
Yeah.
Like, or if you're running on the treadmill, you're blowing that thing at level 8 right now, and you get back down to level 6. Because that's exactly how I feel. I knew we were going to do this today, but like this is really good. And by the way, I don't want anybody listening to hear basketball. We're saying basketball. You're thinking life. Your job in listening to Alan, he's the best at this when he comes in to speak or when you read his book, is the transference of these metaphors or these strategies from sports into however it applies for you. That's a lesson for everyone listening to any podcast or reading any book. It's being able to distill that information as it applies to you and your experience. So one other thing that the athletes I work with struggle with, and I think people do in business and in life and in relationships, is also projecting into the future. Mm-hmm. And then they have this conversation with themselves about, I'll give you an example, a golfer who's got a putt they should make, 3-foot putt to win a golf tournament. Where's the nerves come from? I believe oftentimes the nerves come from, believe it or not, this bizarre conversation of projection of, if I miss this putt, what will they say about me? If I miss this shot at the end of the game, what will they say about me? If my guy hits this shot on me in basketball, what will they say? And it's literally projecting into the future the negative emotions or feelings about what other people will actually say or think about this mistake you may potentially make. And I think this happens on posts on social media. I think it happens if I walk across the room and ask this person out for a date. It's the projection of what they will say or think about you in the midst of an experience that hasn't even happened yet that you're projecting a negative outcome from. That's also true in sports and in life. True? The projected in the future.
Absolutely. Oh, man, I love where this is going. You're so insightful with that. And also what they're 100% consumed with is merely the outcome. See, they've left the process. They're just worried about the outcome. Does the ball go in or not go in? Does the ball go in the cup or not go in the cup? Does she say yes when I ask her out or does she say no? When we can learn, and this is something that I've worked really hard on in my own life over the last couple of years, is learning how to detach from outcomes and just love the process and the work. And where we really have an issue is if outcomes and results actually define our self-worth. Then we have a problem. You know, I know you're big on setting goals, and we want to set, really big and aggressive goals. I'm a believer that if you set your goals appropriately, maybe you hit them 30, 40, 50% of the time. You don't hit them every time. Yes. If you're hitting your goal every time, then I could make a compelling argument that you've set the bar too low. Yes. Well, if your entire identity and self-worth and confidence and self-belief is wrapped up in outcomes and reaching goals and achievement, then that means half the time you feel good about yourself, half the time you feel lousy about yourself. Yes. And I don't know about you, but life's too short to feel lousy half of the time.
Bro, I love what you're saying. Number one, I think the real number, if you set real goals, is more like 20%, 25% of the time. Number two, if you attach your outcomes, your identity and worth to outcomes, you'll be chasing that the rest of your life. And when that outcome or your career or what you do no longer exists, or the relationship, you'll be lost and empty. And this is a very nuanced thing. I want to go there for a minute.
Sure.
Because you should have goals in your life and outcomes. However, I am the best flow. I'm in the best state when I do detach from outcome.
Yes.
And it's a very unique nuance because I know what I want to have happen, which is I want to hit this shot, or I want to make $1 million, or I want, and it's about having that intention, but then separating from the outcome. Because if you become so outcome focused, this is a massive stress increaser, pressure increaser in our lives. And I think most people really struggle with how to navigate it. And I don't know that I've been great at being able to explain the nuance between the two. So I'm going to push you a little further than we've even gone.
Please.
How would you nuance those two things? What is the difference between I have a goal, but in the execution process, I detach during that moment so that I'm just focused on the execution of the process? Is that 100%? What you're saying?
Yeah, I've got two. One's a real short analogy, and one's another basketball example. Big surprise. Yeah. The first is if I was tasked with building a brick wall, which I most likely won't be because I'm not very handy. I'm not very good with building stuff. I'm not very good with tools. But I have confidence that I could build a brick wall. And the reason is I've trained myself to not worry about the end result, not worry about the wall, and put all of my focus into laying each and every brick with care and precision. If I can take one brick and set it exactly where it needs to go, and then I pick up the next brick and set it exactly where it needs to go, if I do that consistently over time, the wall just takes care of itself. I don't have to be worried about the wall. I have to focus on laying bricks. And that's also what I have control over, is laying bricks. Now, from a basketball analogy, I had an opportunity to work with Queen's University as one of the top Division II men's basketball programs in the United States. And their previous coach, Bart Lundy, is a good friend of mine. And he has broken it down at Queen's University that there are 4 key stats in the game of basketball that heavily impact whether or not they win the game. And the first stat is turnover differential. If we can have more possessions than our opponent, gives us a better chance to win. Second is offensive rebound differential. If we can rebound our own misses and take more shots than our opponent, gives us a better chance to win. Third is free throws attempted. It's the highest percentage shot per possession. If we can take more of those than our opponent, better chance to win. And last is 3-pointers attempted. The 3-pointer in the college game is a massive weapon. If we can take more clean looks from 3 than our opponent, gives us a better chance to win. When Queen's University comes out on top in those 4 stats, they win 97% of their games, which means statistically they're almost unbeatable. So my rhetorical question for your millions of listeners is, what do you think Coach Lundy and his staff talk about, remind, and emphasize before every workout, every practice, every film session, and before every game? It's just those 4 things. He never talks about winning, championships, banners, or trophies. Why? If they do those 4 things, winning, championship, trophies, and banners take care of themselves. You don't have to focus on them. So it's focusing on the things that we have the control over. And that goes back to, again, shrinking that window.
Oh, and it's very good. John Wooden's probably the winningest coach in all time. He never discussed winning at all.
Ever.
It was all process. And again, everybody, you got to think about how these things apply to your own life and how you put them into action, because this is profound stuff. And I've been doing the show for a long time. You know, the truth that you're spitting here is remarkable to me, and the application of it.
Well, here's how people need to apply that. So once again, and I'm so glad that you brought up the point that, well, I may use basketball examples because that's where I've spent most of my life. Folks need to take these and figure out how they can, apply them to their situation. So step number 1 is figure out what does winning look like to you, or what does success look like to you? Again, this could be in your marriage. This could be, in your business. This could be for something you're doing in your community, but figure out, what does winning look like? Now, of course, in the game of basketball, which Simon Sinek has said is a finite game, and I'm a big fan of Simon's work, is a finite game. We have unanimously around the globe agreed that the team with the most points on the scoreboard when the final buzzer goes off is the winner. Life, relationships, business, it's a little more esoteric. It's not as clear. How you might define winning in business might be slightly different than maybe one of your friends or colleagues, but that doesn't matter. You just have to get crystal clear on what winning looks like to you. And then you need to figure out, what are the measurable building blocks, the bricks, if you will, that will allow me to reach that goal. And then once you have that North Star, take your eyes off of it and just focus on the bricks. Think about a GPS, which most people need to navigate the world these days. I don't know how I survived without one beforehand. But you need to know 2 things. You need to know where you are in the moment, not where you were 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, or 5 weeks ago. You need to know where you are right now, and you need to have an end address. Where am I going? Those are the only 2 points you need. And then once you have those 2 points, you don't need to worry about either one of them. What you need to do now is pay attention to the directions and listen to every turn that you're supposed to make. And of course, the beauty with this analogy is, if you're like me and kind of directionally dysfunctional, you're probably going to take a wrong turn. And then what happens? It reroutes. It just reroutes. So the GPS doesn't get angry at you. It doesn't call you an idiot. It just simply reroutes, and it puts you back on that course. And that's ultimately what all of us should be trying to do, is pursue our North Star by focusing on the steps and directions it takes to get there. And when you misstep or you make a wrong turn, don't get upset over it. Just move to the next play and take the next direction to reroute.
If you're not conscious of what they are, if you don't create new ones, you're just repeating the same life in a different year over and over. And that script that John talked about, your script is the same as it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, with slightly different characters and slightly different dressings in the room. One of the things that I read with you just took my breath away, because I struggle with what you said. I think most achievers struggle with celebrating the small wins. They cheat themselves with these dopamine hits. Eventually, that's part of what burnout is that you just finally go, winning isn't fun. I don't get anything out of it, and I no longer seek to do it because there's no pleasure center being activated when I do it. The other part I do is I'm really hard on myself, like you said. And I think if I were splitting hairs with me now, to this day, it would still be my language. Like, I always try to find, what's the millimeter I can fight for? You know, I think the thing that I regress on from time to time, because I try to remain humble and have some humility, is I think I take sometimes self-deprecation too far. I've caught myself recently, I said it in this interview, I'm old. I'm old. I'll say phrases like that. And friends of mine will even say, stop, please stop saying that. You're the guru of personal development and you keep using these words. And then I was watching you when it came to weight. Guys, John does not say lose weight. I was always thought that's a harmless thing to say. I want to lose weight. Please talk about words, and specifically when it comes to just weight for a second, because it's gonna set off this in people's minds.
Yeah. So you may or may not know this story yet, but 10 years ago, I was 238 pounds, 33% body fat, borderline hypertensive, almost full on diabetes, severe sleep apnea, not in good shape.
No,
and
not.
So I said, listen, you've done okay in business. You've done okay with your relationship. You're happily married. Great, this and that. Look at you. You're a physical mess. Yeah. And so words are really, really, really critical because there's something really important listening. And so if you're using words that you're reinforcing, if they're self-deprecating words, you're reinforcing a self-deprecating self-image, which means Frankenstein brain's going to be triggered by those words. So if you think about weight, what is it? Every pound is 3,500 calories of energy. Right? And so when you think about what do you do when you lose something? What have we been taught to do when we lose something? Try and find it.
Go find it. Go get it back.
So if weight is energy, I said to myself, what do I need to do to release this energy back into the universe, back in the form of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, whatever it is, so that somebody else who needs it right now can use it? It served me long enough. I'm ready to release it and to change, my physique, to change how I feel, to change how I look. And my goal back then for my 50th birthday was to get into the best shape of my adult life for 50, which I did. And then my goal is to have a six-pack at 60, which I'm already there. So I'm actually almost there. But the whole idea was the words that I use, right, are really important because they're the words that I listen to and reinforce.
Gosh. So he releases weight, everybody. He doesn't lose weight. And I'm going to tell you something. Of all the breakthroughs I've heard, we've learned so much more about macros and fat intake and caloric intake. And we know the chemistry of how to lose weight for almost all body types. This right here is a huge thing to be considering, guys. And it's a truth with money, relationships, every area. Start to be aware, start to be cognizant of the words you use to describe yourself, circumstances, situations, even the words you use to describe your goals and dreams.
Yeah. So can I just say one thing?
Yes, definitely.
This book. So in my health section, okay, I script every word for health, wealth, relationships, career, business. So it says, I have an abundance of physical and mental energy. I feel and look great. I'm the healthiest I have ever been. Being spiritually grounded, emotionally centered, mentally focused, and totally healthy and happy are my highest priorities. I now weigh 195 to 198 pounds with less than 12% body fat. I'm consistently in a peak performance state of flow, creativity, and productivity. My blood work is perfect, and I now have an abundance of energy, focus, and peace of mind. I sleep deeply and soundly. I feel well rested and energized every day. Now, I read this every day. I have that on my mobile phone of my recording that I listen to every single day. I look at my document every day and run my fingers across it. Why? I want to enforce exactly the words and the patterns that I choose into my subconscious mind. So I choose consciously, very carefully. Like an artist writes a song, I write my life song for health, wealth, relationship, career, business with very specific words. I imprint those into my subconscious mind. They formulate my conscious dialogue.
I love this. So guys, subtle thing, got to point it out. Two things. You don't just read, you read with your finger. That's a different visual stimulus for your body. Yeah. The reason he's got that on the phone is you're now giving yourself the auditory feedback as well. So there's science behind what John's teaching you. I got to tell you right now, This is a literal flipping masterclass on how to change your life. It's a masterclass. Like you guys, I'm so excited. And if you're not sharing this, man, you're cheating people out of life. You know why John's so good at this? Because there's one level, and you can just tell if you're watching the video version of this, there's a goodness about his spirit when you're in his presence, even when it's just a Zoom presence. Everyone that knows the two of us mutually, I love to hear how brilliant and smart and successful people are, but what I really listen for is, do I hear repeatedly, he's such a good man. And this comes out of you, it's natural. And guys, both of us really worked on ourselves to build our businesses and our lives. Something has overtaken both of us where now we're working on behalf of you as well. And I know John's so great at this, not only because it's changed his own life, but because he's learning to teach now. He's learning, he wants to reach 1 billion people in the world. And there's a difference, and I admire that about you, brother. And I just want to acknowledge that in you, because I know that's why you're so great at this. I've improved my ability to articulate and have breakthroughs, not just on my own behalf, because I only do so much for myself, but when I think I can elevate other people, and that's why you're such a gift. And it leads me to the last
social and moral purpose than us.
Yeah, and you're doing it, John. Like, you're doing it. Like, lives changed today. And at the end, I want to talk about life. And I know this is a sensitive topic for you, but I want to talk about grief last. We could talk about so many other things, but there are people right now grieving that are listening to this. They're grieving the loss of their business. They're grieving the loss of their job. Maybe it's the loss of a home or money. Could be the loss of their health or that of a loved one. Maybe their relationship's in a little stress right now because of all what's going on. Interesting first thing for me is that you say something about you may not be able to change people's minds, but you can change people the way that they sort of behave. And so I've always looked at influence like I'm going to change their mind. Then I'm starting to read your work. I'm like, no, I was wrong about that. So start out there about changing behavior and not minds.
Right. This is a distinction that most of us don't make. We think that if we want to change somebody, we need to change their mind, but so little of our thinking and our behavior is actually happening consciously or intentionally, that often it's not just that it's so hard to change people's minds, including yours, of course, as you know, but it is very unlikely that if you do change their minds, their behavior will just naturally follow. And a simple example of conversation somebody was having with me this morning is about his kid not rinsing out the bathroom sink after brushing his teeth. And he's like, how do I get him to care? How do I get him to remember? And he thinks he needs to change his son's mind, but he's just forgetting. It's not that his son needs to be motivated to rinse out the sink, right? Motivation, even though this is such a big part of what we talk about in our pursuit of success, motivation is a smaller part of the question than just making it easy. So I was talking to him about what would make it easier for your son to remember to do the thing. And so he's going to ask his son, what would it take for you to remember to do the thing? And they'll decide. And, is it going to be a Hot Wheels car sitting next to the sink in the bathroom? And then he knows that's what it means. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll
So
find out.
this is where we're going to go. So I love this. By the way, one of the benchmarks of my work is that I don't think the most motivated people win in life. I think it's their habits and rituals and their routines on the days they don't feel inspired. And the reason after reading your work that this is true, by the way, guys, you already can tell, if you're listening to this on the treadmill or driving in the car, you're going to do it. And then you're going to actually want to go write a bunch of notes down because you're going to be in class today on influence. But one of the things you point out in the book is that what you just said, but I want you to elaborate on this point, which is one of the ways to influence people is they're typically always going to take the path of least resistance. And just the understanding and awareness that that's what a human being is likely to do, I think is one of the first pathways to being more influential. So elaborate. If I'm wrong, correct me. And if I'm right, elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. It's not that we're lazy in terms of not being willing to do a lot of hard work. It's that we are on autopilot, maybe 95% of the time. And so if you think of another person as being always already occupied consciously with something else, then whatever it is that you want them to do, you can start to see how difficult it is to break through that mental clutter. A very simple example in business, but a broader scale example than the toothbrush thing, is Domino's Pizza, who figured out the secret to success in business is making it as easy as possible for people to buy things from you. So Domino's Pizza says, we're going to have a Domino's Anywhere campaign where we know what your favorite pizza is, and we know where you live. And we know that by habit, most people ordering pizza order the same pizza to the same address. So they said, listen, what if you just text us or tweet us an emoticon of a pizza, and then poof, like magic, pizza shows up at your house.
Yeah.
In that year, they earned 12% higher sales in the United States. Number one pizza company, Pizza Hut, declined by 2%. So you can imagine what's happening here is not just that it's easier to buy pizza from Domino's than Pizza Hut, but they're actually expanding the market for pizza in a place where it's so saturated because it's easier to eat pizza than some other kind of food. And then by 3 years after that, they've overtaken Pizza Hut as the number one pizza company in the entire world.
That is such a great example. And it's just one of these things. I'm always going to reinforce points when they're being made, but this is something I think about when I'm trying to get my kids to do things, or even I'm in a selling situation, or even with myself, to get myself to make changes, to take the easiest first steps, the path of least resistance. And the way you said it in the book, I'm like, my goodness, this is so true. Now, one of the things you say in the book, there's so much. And by the way, the reason I'm only going to cover some of this, guys, is I want you to get the book, right? But things like behavioral economics is discussed in the book, you know, the neuroscience of creating change. So it's not just like poofy stuff. It's poofy stuff and tangible stuff backed up by the scientific evidence of it, which is why the class, I'm sure, is like just so important. But to use concepts that people can remember too. What's this alligator and judge analogy that you use? Because this is like, people won't forget it, right? I want to start out, we'll go to some complex stuff, but alligator, judge, even a guy like Ed Mylett can remember. So give us that.
Yeah, it helps to give people visual, concrete analogies, right?
Yes.
So the gator represents our unconscious, intuitive, habitual, emotional system that, like I was saying earlier, drives 95% of our decisions and our behavior. And the judge represents the conscious, slow, rational, deliberate, effortful system that we think is in charge because it's conscious. And by definition, we just can't perceive the unconscious part. One of the tricky things about the relationship between these two systems, the judge and the gator, is that influence goes one direction almost exclusively from the gator to the judge. So when we have strong preferences, opinions, and feelings about other people, right? Or things we do or don't want to do. And then we easily rationalize those preferences. But we can't talk ourselves into, say, like, do you have any kind of food that you hate, Ed?
Yes. I cannot eat any type of broccoli whatsoever, which is terrible because it's good for you, but I don't like broccoli.
Okay. So you hate broccoli. Yeah. Is there any kind of rational argument that could influence you to love broccoli?
No chance.
No chance, right?
Yeah.
It's possible you could be influenced in some way to eat broccoli through a rational argument, but you're never going to influence the way you feel through reason.
Yes. Okay. Here's how brilliant that is. I actually eat broccoli. We're going to talk about this later in the show, but frankly, it's because of the way it was framed to me, which is something we're going to talk about a little bit later. I've been talking about framing for years, and then you took it to a whole new level. So the way it was framed to me has compelled me to be willing to take that action. And by the way, I do it in the path of least resistance, even though it's something that I would never tell you that I love doing, because it's been framed to benefit me.
One of the things I told Tim before the interview, this Relentless and his Relentless program as well, I was telling him before the interview on this topic there's so many of you that have children that are at that teenage years and they're thinking about their sport or college or the rest of their life. I so strongly believe the sooner in life someone begins to learn to think like this, the easier it is to develop those habits. And so at the end, when we promote this, or even Tim's book and his program, really encourage you to get your children at the right age involved in this and learning to think like this earlier in life. Their lives will be so much better earlier if they learn to think this way as opposed to the way the world's teaching them to think right now. So I want to make sure that I've told you that. In just a few minutes, we're going to tell you how you can get access to his program
I keep saying it, but we're getting too soft. Everyone talks about, nobody moves anymore. We're getting unhealthy. Listen, we have access to some of the healthiest foods, all the diets out there, all the knowledge. There's more gyms opening now than ever before. And why is the obesity rate going up? You have the knowledge. You know, hey, if I eat this, this is what's going to happen. If I eat this, this is not going to. But people want to make excuses. You know, I got a slow metabolism rate. I'm big boned and all that. No, you're eating too much. All right, let's stop making excuses. All right, there are people out there that do have those conditions.
Sure.
Okay, we overcomplicate things. Move more, eat less equals weight loss.
There you go. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure most people's bones aren't much bigger than other people's bones.
They're not. That's just yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what these people say. That's completely nonsensical.
Yeah.
Your bones are not bigger than my bones.
Yeah, but it's an excuse. They've heard that. They've heard that somewhere. Yeah, I can't lose the weight because of that. It's the same thing. You know, when you're competing at something, it's not. Why was Michael and Kobe who they were? Tom Brady, Dwayne Wade, Wayne Gretzky, Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, all these guys. Not because of their physical gifts. Yes, that had a lot to do with it. It's up in here.
Yeah.
It's up in here, and we can all listen. We're not going to learn to fight like Floyd. We're not going to learn to play basketball like Michael. We're not going to be able to do these things, but you can all think that way in whatever you're doing. You can all take that action. You can be that cleaner in whatever you want to do. It starts and ends up here. All right, it's time to recharge this and reboot this.
Is there a difference at all? I'm just curious because you work with both of them. Just a sports thing. You indulge me. What is the difference between Kobe and Jordan? Was there a difference in the two? Because there's tons of similarities. Is there a difference in the two?
I always say this. Kobe worked out harder. Michael worked out smarter.
Is that right?
Yes. They both were extremely hard, but Michael was always smart. It was this constant push, and we had to kind of, even when you reeled them in, okay, you'd get a call at 3 a.m. in the morning. He said, "What are you doing?" "It's 3 a.m. I'm sleeping." "That's what you should be doing."
Right.
"Let's go back to the gym."
Really?
All right. And I'm like, "No, it's really not a good idea." Well, here's the thing. Even if I tell him it's not a good idea, I still got to go to the gym because he's going to show up at the gym.
No kidding.
Yeah. He's going to show up at the gym.
Were they the two hardest workers?
Yes. You know, your most successful individuals are. Yeah. It doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
It doesn't. You listen. There's a lot of talented people that succeed at nothing. Mm-hmm. At absolutely nothing. Now, when you have that individual that's talented, you have that individual that knows how to work hard. Mm-hmm. All right, and they have the intelligence. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is key. This is key because this is what's missing now with individuals. All right, you have the talent, you have the intelligence. All right, you know how to compete. You don't have the resiliency.
The resiliency.
You don't have that. When failure comes kicking your ass.
Yeah.
All right, you crumble and you fold.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
You crumble. You gotta have that resiliency over and over again. But at some point, that resiliency has got to turn into something. All right, you know, people talk about all the time, oh, you build so much character from losing and, you know, from failure and all that. Listen, at this point in my life, I got enough fucking character.
I've had enough losing. Yeah, me too.
I got enough character.
Yeah.
All right.
I've learned more from my wins. I just don't even think it's true.
You always learn more from your wins. You always learn more from your wins.
Yeah.
You're cool. See, here's the thing. You cannot say this. All right. A cleaner never calls himself a cleaner. And you know why a cleaner never calls himself a cleaner? Because he's never satisfied. Yeah. Another individual can call themselves a cleaner. That statement you just made tells me right now, and don't let this go, you are a cleaner. You'll never admit it. Right. Your wife will never admit it. Okay, but somebody else can say, when they see it, he's a cleaner.
Oh, I appreciate that.
But you're never going to be you're never going to be satisfied.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't feel like it, right? It just honestly doesn't.
And it never will. It never will. Because guess what? When it does, you're no longer a cleaner. You're a closer.
Right. You move backwards, right?
You move backwards.
You're not willing to go through the next wall.
Right. Yeah. And it happens. You get a lot of individuals that make that stage. They go from closers to cleaners, and it's too intense.
Yeah.
I
watch it all the time, man.
It's too intense, and you see them. You see them go back.
You do.
You see them go back. Like, listen. You're built a certain way. Okay, you work out to have this physique. I work out to look this way. Yep. Okay, your wife, everybody else does. What happens if you stop?
We know.
It goes.
You got it.
Your body goes back. You don't have those arms. You don't have those shoulders. You don't have those guns. You don't no longer have that waist. Your body wants to always convert back to being comfortable.
So true, man.
Okay.
So true.
And we say this all the time. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Being uncomfortable. You said something in the book. We'll go through a couple bullet points because you said something about the hard work. Let me just read something to you said here because I just really believe all of this. But you said he knew his skills were so finely tuned that he could dominate any situation. You're talking about Jordan. He worked so hard and long that his body and his mind, this is the word, reflexively knew what to do at all times with Michael. Everything became automatic. He repeated those same movements over and over until he didn't have to think about anything. He only had to let those instincts take over. So what I see in like professional business people is the more they've repeated these, whether it's their phone call or their script or their close over and over, when pressure hits, they can act reflexively. Right? And their instincts take over. And your average person has not put in that background work, and so when pressure hits, they flinch, they miss, they stutter, they stammer. It's not reflexive to them, right?
Correct.
So one of the big differences is their ability to get to it's an automatic reflexive process through the work, right?
Yes, you know what? Your greatest athletes, all right, your greatest business people, all right, your most successful individuals in whatever they do, I'm talking about teachers or whatever, okay? You know what to them thinking is? Thinking's a distraction. Wow. Thinking is a distraction. They're so finely tuned. Everything is no longer a reaction. It's a reflex. All right? So when they're actually thinking about something, they're actually not on their game.
You're right. You're right.
Okay?
Yes.
They're not on their game.
Yeah.
If you have to think about this movement, you got to think about this, you got to think about what you do. No, when something happens, it's like, but in order to get that state, you know how many years and years of preparation it takes not to be able to think. And you hear this about all the time in athletes or kids. Just go up to the plate. Don't think. Just swing the bat. Okay, just shoot the ball. No, it doesn't work like that. That's years.
That only works if you've had the 25,000 hours of the work in,
exactly.
Right? For those of you that getting into a business or you're in a business, you're already good. You can't work enough. You can't get so good at your craft. The more and more reps you do, the more reflexive something becomes under pressure, and the more you train people over and over and over again so that when they're under pressure, they react reflexively too. That's how you build a team, right?
Yeah, it's just like, all right, I'm going to give a little example here. I don't know how long we've been going for. Everyone's driven in a car. You got a passenger next to you. So let's say you're driving, okay, and you have a family member sitting next to you, all right, and all of a sudden you hit the brakes. What's the first thing you do? You reach over and protect the person next to you. You don't think about it. Well, that's what cleaners do.
That's cleaner.
Okay.
In business and in anything they do.
Exactly. What's a closer's going to do? A closer's going to hit the brake, and then he's going to look over to the person. Are you okay?
Yes.
No. Yes. They already know they're going to be okay. I got to make sure everybody else is okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got to take care of that person.
How good was that?
Yeah, to open up rooms for you.
I love this thing you talk about, though. So we're both free now, but you talk a lot about how important routine is to getting you to freedom, right? And so speak to routine a little bit, because we both agree about this. You say it in a more powerful way than I do. But for someone listening to this, talk about routine, because everyone wants to be free. One of the challenges is they act free before they are. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain amount of disciplines and routine and habits and rituals you got to have that could get you free at one point. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I'm gonna say honestly, man. You know, I came to the realization one day, and again, love my biological father. You know, much respect for the person that raised me. But I realized at some point when I looked at my family's history, I was like, some things I don't want. There's some things I want, but there's some things I don't want. And then I remember having to say one day to myself, like, yo, you are your father's child. Like, yo, even though he didn't raise you, even though in the beginning you guys had, you know, whatever little stuff y'all need to get through, don't lie. You are lazy at times. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are super social and you'd rather talk than work. You know what I'm saying? I just had to grow up one day and just be real with myself and just say, the only way you're gonna be successful is you gotta discipline yourself. You know, when you look at a horse, I'm talking about a thoroughbred, it still needs that. What is that thing called that they put on it? It still he needs that. Without, you know, you can't. You got to control him. You know, he got a lot of juice, got a lot of energy. He can go for it, but you gotta hone that. Yeah. And so I realized, like, yo, E, you sleep in, you play video game. Don't lie to yourself. You are powerful. But you have some vices, and you have some vices that take you down a crazy road. Like, you are your father, you are your grandfather, you are your mother, you are your grandmother. Like, it's real. And so I started saying, okay, E, you got to discipline yourself. And this is for me, this ain't for everybody. I started getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like, yo, you're gonna have to get up a little bit earlier because you didn't finish school. You didn't take care of your business. So you can't get up the same time another man who gets up, who handle his business. So you need to get up at 3 if you're gonna catch the greats. You got to get up at 3. You got to go to bed earlier. This is why I said I never drank or smoked, because the men in my life who did it were extremists. I had an uncle who died, cirrhosis of the liver. You know, I had other uncles who drank, and my father, bless his heart, but he was strung out on drugs for about 14 years. And I was just like, yo, E, you can see that they don't know how to do it casually. Like, they ain't social drinkers. Like, they ain't social on substance. They taking it to a whole nother level. And so for me, it was like, E, you got to discipline yourself. You're not going to die if you never know what alcohol tastes like. But if you taste it, you might have the same experience they had. So you just got to discipline yourself. You know, I do vegan most of the time. You know what I'm saying? And I tell people all the time, I love fried chicken. I love macaroni and cheese. I love a lot of desserts. But in my family, it's diabetes. So it's like, yo, E, if you do what they do, then you're going to get the results they got. So chicken is good, and macaroni and cheese, the way my grandma make it, is great. And yes, the pound cake is phenomenal. But if you want to be with Dee Dee for the next 30, 40 years, and you want to be able to walk, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to be on the cruise. I was just on the cruise, and a couple people, you know, was on the motor scooter, you know what I'm saying? People with the canes and the walkers. And I'm not mad at them. But I'm like, I don't want that. I want to be able to walk at 60, at 70. I want to be independent at 80 if I can be. So I'm going to have to make some sacrifices now for the long run. I would drink pop every day if I could.
Is everybody hearing this, though? Like, I mean, listen, all of us that want to win, like you already said, like, I got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning if I'm going to catch the greats, because I started with some deficiency. Absolutely. Successful people are very self-aware. Like, they don't BS themselves, right? Like, I have laziness too. Absolutely. I love laying around. I love sleep, right? No, but before, I wouldn't have got to sleep here if I was just me. I had to get these rituals and habits and disciplines. And people think, sometimes they listen to me and we're so intense, like, these dudes are freaks. I'm not a freak. No.
But you know why they say that? Because it makes it easier for them to say, I can't do it if they freaks, then I can't do it.
That's their out. You're exactly right. And I'm not going to give you that out. Neither are you. Like, I'm lazy. I got to get up early. I got to get up because if I don't get up by, like, I get up at 4:35, but if I don't get up by then, I will be in bed at 8 o'clock. I have to get up. I have to move my body. So I'm with you 100%.